Sony's PlayStation 5, the console with an extensive list of exclusive titles such as God of War, Spider-Man, and The Last of Us. Oh, what's that? All these games are on PC now. Ever since the release of the PlayStation 5, Sony hasn't exactly been on their A game when it comes to releasing exclusive titles for their console. But then again, Microsoft hasn't exactly been on top either, because Starfield still fucking sucks. The only thing that's really keeping Microsoft's head above the water is the fact that they have Game Pass. And with Sony recently announcing the PlayStation 5 is in the later stage of its life cycle, the future of the console isn't looking too great. Look, it's 2024, and the console wars aren't exactly real anymore. It's a fugazi, it's a fujazi, it doesn't exist. Whether or not you purchase a PlayStation or an Xbox, these companies have both given up trying to sell their consoles. Xbox is just focusing on selling people its Game Pass, and PlayStation at some point were releasing new single-player exclusives for their console, which isn't exactly gonna happen anymore. Well, not at least till 2025. But there still is a saving grace for Sony, because if you've been paying attention to what Sony's been doing for the past couple of years, what we have been seeing more of is their games being ported over to Steam for PC players. And it just so happened that Helldivers 2 was the next game in line to be released on PC. Helldivers 2 released at the perfect time, after the success of Lethal Company and when people stopped caring about Power Word.
Show that shit. No leeway, no compromise, just L+ ratio jokes.
After that, they all flocked over to Helldivers 2, and rightfully so, because Helldivers 2 is some of the most fun I've experienced for a co-op game since Left 4 Dead 2.
How do I activate it? Don't sit on it.
Whatever, I hope your family dies in an automobile wreck.
Helldivers 2 is a game that takes place in a universe where the United States of America didn't end up putting strip malls on every bit of untouched land. Instead, they focused on expanding outwards and colonized an entire solar system, and eventually ended up in a galactic conflict between the Terminids and the Automatons. When Helldivers 2 was initially announced, I didn't really think much of it, a third-person co-op shooter published by Sony. But then after having a friend recommend it to me and watching a few clips, I thought, why not give it a try? So after booting up the game and completing the tutorial, I went to play my first game of Helldivers 2, which was met with every possible server issue imaginable. Mostly due to the fact that the developers didn't exactly expect it for 450,000 concurrent players on both PC and PS5. But now these issues have mostly been fixed, with the player count increased to over 700,000 concurrent players. At one point, Helldivers 2 actually overtook Counter-Strike 2, becoming the most played game on Steam. When I eventually did get into the game, I discovered some of the most dopamine receptor firing gameplay imaginable.
I hear a charger.
Helldivers 2 is actually a sequel to the incredibly well-received original cult classic game, which was quite similar to Halo Wars, until the franchise completely ran itself into the ground. Upon creating Helldivers 2, the developers made some drastic changes to the gameplay. While much of the gameplay is still quite similar to the first game, mainly involving shooting robots and killing bugs, the new third-person perspective completely changes the game. The gunplay and overall movement is some of the best I've played in any third-person shooter. Instead of the static aiming we're used to with third-person shooters, Helldivers 2 went for this realism that makes the aiming sway back and forth. And coupled with the fact that every reload completely throws the rest of your magazine out, meaning that every bullet fired from your gun actually matters. Especially when it comes to more tense situations, when you're being surrounded by hordes of enemies. Instead of just spraying and praying, you actually have to be quite conscious of what ammo you're wasting. Adding on to this, each weapon actually feels different and unique. Using an LMG will have insane recoil while standing, with the reticle flying all around the screen, or using a revolver will need you to reload each individual bullet. Like the previous Helldivers, friendly fire is enabled, for literally everything, from bullets, grenades, and even the stratagems you call in. It adds to the whole chaotic nature of the game, as you'll have to be aware of everything going on around you. Oh, okay.
What the f-
Also, when you're playing against automatons, there's a chance that you'll have them scramble your stratagems, basically meaning that they can randomly change the stratagems you try to choose, and it can be extremely annoying, as most of the time you call in the stratagems without even looking, but I guess it does make for some funny moments. At first, some people may find the gunplay of Helldivers 2 to be quite infuriating, with every bullet from the enemy completely throwing off your aim as you desperately try to keep it accurate. But when you compare it to the static and cookie cutter formula of most third-person shooters, like for example Suicide Squad, which is known for its atrocious gunplay and god-awful looking AI, Helldivers takes this approach and throws it right where it belongs. There is no need for damage numbers popping up across the screen, because you can actually see the damage you're dealing to enemies as they start to emit flames or limbs completely detach. In a lot of live service games, most of the time you'll come across enemies that are complete bullet sponges. In both Destiny and Warframe, you'll keep shooting the big bar on the screen until it reaches 0. In Helldivers, it doesn't really feel like the enemies are bullet sponges, because there's actually tactical ways in which you can take out your enemies, with your stratagems as well as a bit of teamwork. For instance, one of the many automaton enemies you'll come across is the Hulk. Basically, using any normal primary weapons from the front won't exactly kill the Hulk very easily, meaning that one of your teammates will have to distract the Hulk while another goes up behind it and shoots it at its weak spot. This applies to most of the tougher enemies in Helldivers 2. You will actually need a bit of teamwork to take them down. One of Helldivers' main mechanics is the stratagem system. Most of the time you'll be choosing a third weapon as well as different types of airstrikes and support equipment. Your choice of stratagems will impact the playstyle of each mission, as the cooldowns along with the viability of each stratagem is actually different from one another. Using mortars, for example, makes the defense objectives as well as the extractions a whole lot easier, as the EMP mortar completely disables the automatons, and the explosive mortars clean up large groups of enemies. The general gameplay loop is land on the planet, do some sub-objectives, do the main objective, and do as many side stuff as you can for bonus XP and rewards. Each mission you complete contributes to the liberation of each planet, and each of those planets is separated into certain sectors, meaning that if each planet is liberated in a certain sector, the map will expand out to completely new planets. And even Earth has a liberation percentage, meaning that most likely in the future there will be a possible invasion of Earth. And there's also a missing race of enemies known as Illuminates, which were a race in the first game, and were these technically advanced aliens located in the bottom quarter of the map. Also in Helldivers 1, there were mechs and boss enemies, which have already been teased and are likely to be added into the game already. In each mission there are different difficulty levels from 1 to 9, 1 being trivial and 9 being the hardest difficulty, which is also known as Helldive, which is basically impossible unless all of your team is running the right equipment and communicating together. Most of the missions in the game aren't too difficult, despite the ones where you have to escort civilians, because for whatever reason this mission is extremely difficult. There's so many enemies that get dropped in, it's just overwhelming, and somehow you're expected to fight off all these enemies while keeping the civilians alive. But besides that mission, most of them are quite simple. Go to this objective, do the thing, go to another objective, and then do that thing, and then go extract. Some other missions have time constraints, which also acts as a limit to when you can no longer call on your stratagems, meaning that the likelihood of you staying on that planet for as long as you want without any resupplies or assistance from stratagems basically means that your objective is to survive as long as possible, or at least until you can eventually be extracted. The time constraint is also coupled with the fact that you're only given a limited amount of lives, basically meaning that when your lives reach 0, you have a 2-minute cooldown for each person you can recall. The progression is made through the battle pass, where you unlock cosmetics and weapons, which all come complementary with the game. While there is a free battle pass, there is also a second battle pass that can be purchased with in-game credits known as super credits. You can actually purchase these super credits with real money, but this is completely optional, because throughout missions in Helldivers you can actually find super credit pickups in-game, which give 10 super credits per pickup, and it's shared to your entire team. Helldivers' armor system is split into 3 different types, being light, medium, and heavy armor. Along with the different types of armor, each armor has its own passive, which can range from reduced explosives damage and recoil to extra stims or grenades. Most of the armor and weapons are earned through the battle pass. The premium battle pass has 3 sets of armor and 3 weapons. The armor set I purchased ended up only costing about 6 USD, and I was left with 400 super credits to use, which is a far cry from the $20 armor sets of Halo Infinite or Call of Duty Warzone. And it's not like these cosmetics break the law, because it's pretty unlikely that we'll be seeing Nicki Minaj dropping in a Hellpod anytime soon. Adding on to this, each planet is different, and lots of them take heavy inspiration from other forms of media. Helldivers 2 is a really good looking game, and thanks to the weather system, instead of boring and lifeless planets where there's nothing to do, there are planets that are unique and different from one another. These aren't lifeless starfield planets, we actually get a bit of variety. And let me remind you that Arrowhead's employee count is only about 100 people, not 450 people. It's actually baffling to me that Bethesda, a studio that has had decades of experience on Arrowhead, only for them to outperform them in the $250 million game. AAA live service games have fallen dramatically, especially when you're comparing Helldivers to a game like Halo Infinite, where the live service model never ended up working, and people quickly lost interest in Microsoft's biggest IP, because while the game was fun, the company's incessant obsession over extremely high monetization led to the game receiving a whole lot of backlash, leading to the player drop from a launch of over 200,000 players to a measly 4,000 players. Where most AAA games have failed to meet people's expectations as well as failing to create a game that can be enjoyed, Lethal Company, Powerworld, and now Helldivers 2 have shown people what's actually possible if a game studio makes a game without all the other bullshit involved. Most modern games lack the feeling of progression because they're shrouded by cosmetics. It's become pretty clear that modern gaming sucks, and especially so now that we have Helldivers 2 to really prove that it actually does. New games of 2024 are dead on arrival. The AAA game studios don't even care about what the players want. The thing about AAA games being made today is that it seems like the developers don't even want to play their own games. There is a lack of passionate game developers that actually care about what they're making and have a real understanding of game design. When it comes to smaller studios like Arrowhead, it's that they aren't scared to make games that aren't for everyone, because games can't be made for everyone. And that's the reason why AAA games are failing. It's because they're trying to appeal to the largest audience. These games don't have any identity, and it's why games are ending up dead on arrival, because the leadership at these companies are failing to understand what makes games actually fun. We make games that we want to play. It's quite rare to see a live service game released today that creates their game based on that slogan. As a matter of fact, it's rare to see any modern game with that slogan. But despite what games have released this year and what's coming in the future, Helldivers still stands as a testament to what games should be. And while there may be some issues with the game, it doesn't take away from the fact that the game is fun and enjoyable, which can't be said for many other games that have come out this year. While everything sucks and every game is terrible, there still is some good games to be found, and Helldivers is a testament to that fact.
Look, it's about to go. No! Why are they moving?
What, bro? Okay, dude.